friends, I'm Angela. Welcome to Buckridge Homestead, and get ready to make some farmhouse cheddar cheese with me today. It's going to be fun. It's super easy, and I just want to show you how easy it actually is that you can make it at home. And let's get started. So first off, I made the Mesophilic culture for my cheese so that I don't have to go buy any kind of powdered culture. I can do everything from scratch. So basically what you're doing is you're taking a jar of, I use 2% milk, and I place the jar in the pot like this in water, but the water would come up to like close to the rim, but not so it ever got into my milk, not that close. And then what you do is you bring that milk to the temperature of 24 degrees Celsius, and then you bring this is a pint. And if you're making a quart, you would use half a cup. If you're using a pint like I did, you're using a quarter cup. So you're putting a quarter cup buttermilk in a separate jar, and you're bringing both of those temperatures up to 71 degrees Celsius. So then once they're both 71 degrees, of course, you're going to watch the buttermilk closer because there's only a little bit of it. And then you're going to take them off and let them sit and cool to about 24 degrees Celsius. Mine was just, I think when I showed it was 25 or 26. So as soon as it cools to about 24, you're going to whisk in your buttermilk, quarter cup of buttermilk into your 1 pint. Well, of course your milk is going to be down a quarter cup because you need to have room below this line to fit it. So you're going to use about that much because you're making a pint in total. So you're going to only fill this full of 2% or whatever kind of milk you have. And then you're going to whisk that, and we're going to leave this on the counters for about 12 hours. And it's going to create our mesophilic culture. It's that easy. And I'll also show you how to make a thermophilic culture another time. But if you want to follow along exact steps, I have a video on how to make your own culture in the cheese making playlist, but I'll try and remember to link it below. So now you do not want to put this in the fridge. You want to put this on your counter somewhere in a nice room where it can stay room temperature. Okay, so not back in the fridge. So that culture is going to grow in the next 12 hours, and it's going to be thicken up a little bit depending on circumstances and what kind of milk you're using. But it's just gonna, so I'm just gonna let mine sit there. There's no sun directly gonna come into this window. You do not want it sitting in the sun. So put it somewhere where it's not in the sun, it won't get too warm, and it's not too cold. Just room temperature, average room temperature is perfect. I'm so glad that you're coming along with me to make cheddar cheese today. So before we get started, I just want to share what we need first. So you need 2 gallons of milk. And you can use raw milk, but you do need to pasteurize it first. So you can just remember what I showed you how to pasteurize your milk earlier when we were making the culture. Just make sure it's pasteurized, which means you're just bringing it up to a certain temperature. A big stock pot for making our cheese. Either a cheese culture that you've made, that's the one that we made already, or a Mesophilic culture that is powdered form. Cheese colorant, it's called annatto. If you choose, you can make white cheddar if you want, and you don't have to use any. Calcium chloride, liquid, a really good digital thermometer so you can get exact temperatures. Sea salt, I'm using pink Himalayan salt to flavor the cheese, but you can use any kind of sea salt, but it cannot be iodized salt. And these are freshly boiled and dried cheesecloth. And I buy them, let's see if I have the package. This is the package that I buy. I like this, and I get it in big chunks. It's the very fine mesh, lint-free, washable, and I reuse it a few times. And then you need some rennet, and I'm using the rennet little tablets. And you need a cheese mold and some sort of cheese press. Now this awesome press, my husband made me, and it's great. I'm going to need some weight also, because you do need to do different weight to put down on your cheese. So I will go downstairs and get some of his weights later. But anything that you can use to press your cheese, you can use if you have an actual cheese press. So that's excellent. I wanted to show you one other thing that I use. So these I have just washed, and basically what they are is dollar store containers that I have poked a hole in. So I can use this as a cheese press, or sorry, as a cheese mold. And it's got holes already in the side. That's why I chose it. And then I put a bunch of holes in the bottom. And then this one will go on top as a press. And the weights would go on top of that. So if I make a bigger batch that I can't fit into my cheese press here, I can use this one. All right, so it's time to get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pour our milk into our stock pot. And we're using 2 gallons. And I'm just using 2% milk. But you can use any kind you like as long as it's not ultra pasteurized. And it's best practice to make sure that you have everything sterilized in your cheese making equipment and stuff before you even begin. Woo! I will finish this pouring. Okay, so the 2 gallons of milk are in the pot, and I'm just going to take this to the stove now, and I'm going to slowly warm up the milk. So we are going to warm up this milk to 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And keep your handy thermometer close because you're going to need it. And you want to heat this on slowly on low. Okay, so you want to watch your milk really carefully because 30 degrees is not very much and it goes by really quick. So I went a little bit over in temperature. So that's okay. I'm just going to wait till it comes down to 30. So don't get too distracted. I was around 35 still. So I'm just going to wait for this to come down, and then I will add in, then we're going to put in our culture and let it sit for 30 minutes. But first I just have to wait for it to come to 30. So don't do like me and get distracted because it doesn't take much. Plus you need to have it on very low because you don't want it to burn or everything is ruined. Okay, so I am using animal rennet. That is my favorite. And it says right on here, 2 gallons of milk, half a tablet dissolved in half a cup of water. So I've got half a cup of cool water here, and I'm going to start that to dissolve. And I'm just gonna let that sit to the side and stir it up while I'm waiting. Can you hear the rain beating on the roof? It sounds so crazy. I think this is the perfect day to make cheese because look at the weather. That's okay, we need it with this drought that we usually get every summer. Okay, so my milk has been heated to 30 degrees Celsius, and now it's time to add your 3/4 of a cup to 1 cup of your culture. I usually use about a cup, and this would be the time, if you're going to use your powdered Mesophilic culture, that you would put it in now and sprinkle it on the top. And you want to let it sit there and for at least 5 minutes before you stir it in. Otherwise, you can just stir in gently your homemade culture. If you are using the powder, then you want to use about 1/8 of a teaspoon. So now just gently stir your milk. Give it a good stir. And we are going to cover this for 40 minutes. So I'm going to put the timer on, 40 minutes, and then we will come back. I like to put a towel over the top to kind of maintain that temperature, because we want to keep that temperature throughout the 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So that's just what I like to do. And if you start this cheese first thing in the morning, it gives you time to do all of these steps, because each step takes time. So while we're waiting for that culture to do its thing, we're going to take the calcium chloride and we are going to put that into about 1/2 cup of water, and we want to put 1/2 teaspoon into the water, and we're going to just let that dilute so that when the milk's ready, we can put it in. I forgot that I didn't cut the top on purpose. So we're going to put that in there. Give that a little stir. I'm just going to let that sit. So now we've got the calcium chloride and the rennet solution. They're both dissolving and waiting for the milk. Okay, so the timer just went off. I'm gonna turn that timer off, and I'm going to lift the lid, and this had now been sitting here for 40 minutes. Now what I'm going to do first is we're going to take that calcium chloride solution that we dissolved in water, and I'm just going to add this right now and give that a stir. And then the rennet that we dissolved as a tablet. If you're using liquid rennet, then you don't have to do this ahead, but you still need to dissolve it in water. That's the best practice. And so now I'm going to add that, and this is where we're going to be going really slowly. We're going to mix this rennet in with about 6 to maybe 10 stirs here, just to make sure it gets all the way to the bottom. That's perfect. And again, we're going to take our lid. There's a lot of waiting game with cheese. And I'm going to put my lid on the towel, and you don't want to disturb this now. We want to leave this for about 45 minutes, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the timer, and I'm going to check it after 35 and just see, because we're going to be looking for what I call a clean break, and well, not what I call, but what they call when you make cheese. And I will show you what that is. And we will start at 35 minutes. So we will be back again. Boy, I almost forgot that because we're using the annatto coloring this time, we're going to add this in at this time. And actually, if you add it in before you add the rennet, that would be even better, because I want to try this to make the cheese orange this time. So I'm just gently going to just stir that in enough that it incorporates. And I'm going to put the lid back on and just leave it alone. Yeah. But if you forgot about that after more than 5 minutes, I wouldn't add it. I just thought of it like 10 seconds after I closed the lid. So it was okay to add it right now. But you don't need to do this. You can make Farmhouse white cheddar without any colorant. Okay, it's time. Hey, Rick. It's time to check on our cheese. It's been about 35 minutes. So we are going to look, and what we're looking for right now is a firmness, basically like where it's called a clean break, where when I separate this spoon, oh, I see, we're getting one right there. So that means the curds are separating from the whey, and that means it's pretty much ready to cut the curds. Oh, it's pouring rain again outside. I don't know if you can see, but it's really coming down. So anyway, what we're looking for here is when we do this of a complete separation from the whey and the curds. So if it's still kind of soggy and not set, you can leave it for another 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to actually leave this for a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that curd. So while I've been waiting, I've got out my biggest colander, and I've lined this with my cheesecloth, and that's a single layer. And so I have enough to do a double layer. So I'll just wait and see how well it's draining and go from there. And this is just going to sit here and wait while we end up cutting the curds. So what I use is this bread knife because it reaches all the way to the bottom of the pot. And so you need a really long knife. And what you want to do is we're going to try, hang on a minute, I'm going to bring this over to the window. Okay, so this is just better lighting than on the stove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly start cutting the curd into 1/2 inch squares. Oh, this is really set. So you will see when I start cutting it the other way how I'm going to cut it in half there. Now you can see it kind of separating into cubes. And what you want to do is once you've cut this, is we're going to cut on a different angle. So right now we're making tons of little 1/2 inch cubes. And now we want to go in and we want to cut on an angle one way and then now we're going to go another way, because this will allow that whey to really seep out of the curds. And you can kind of see where I have bigger squares that need cut. Okay. That looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this stand for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to take it back to the stove. Can you see after 5 minutes how the curds kind of have refirmed up? So that looks really, really good. Make sure that your burner is on very low, because this does not take that long to bring to the proper temperature, and you need to be doing this for 25 minutes. So you can see as I'm stirring very, very gently that there is a lot more whey rising to the top, and the curd is changing into some smaller little pieces. And that's why we don't want to stir too quickly, because if we make it all milky and we'll have less cheese later. We need to go slow. And so let's just stop for 1 second here, check our temperature. Where are we at? We still have 15 minutes to go. Oh, we're getting really close. We're going to 39 degrees Celsius or 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're 36.6, so that's great. It's on very, very low, and I'm going to keep stirring this. You can see it when I stop stirring how much whey actually came to the top. And I'm just going to keep gently stirring this up until the timer goes off. But I'm going to keep checking that temperature, and as soon as it hits 39, I'm going to take it and turn the burner right off so it doesn't get any warmer. And if you think your burner is going to maintain or keep giving off too much heat, move it over to the side onto a different burner and continue to stir it. We have just reached 39. Looks like it, oops, it's hopping down from, there we go, 39 degrees. It's because I took it out, but it was 39. And so now there's a remainder of 11 minutes left. So I'm just going to gently, I turned off the heat, and I'm just going to gently keep moving these curds so that they don't stick to the bottom or burn or anything. And just really slowly continue to stir until my timer goes off. The next thing I have done is I have sterilized the inside of the sink. I put my colander in there, and I'm draping my boiled cheesecloth over top. So when the timer goes off and we're ready, I can drain a bit of the whey off of my curd into the sink. Now you can save the whey. It is good for chickens, it's good for lots of stuff throwing on your garden or whatever. I'm not going to save it today just because I'm I'm holding my phone to video this, and I just want to share with you the easiest way. So you can keep it and use it for a multitude of things. If you look it up, all the beautiful things that you can do with it. You can even drink it and make things from it, but it needs to be used right away. So that's why I'm not saving it today. So this is all ready. My curds, my timer is about to go off. I just finished stirring it for the 25 minutes, and I'm going to drain a bit of that off. It also dampens my cloth so that when we use this for the cheese mold, the cheese doesn't stick to the cheesecloth. So let's get going. So what I have done is I've got my little cheese mold here, and I've got this on a cookie sheet, a pan, something so that when the whey drains out, you can catch it and dump it. And I've got my other little pan. If you have 2 of these cheese molds, this recipe will fit to make 2 of those, but also you can improvise and use other things. So I just want to show you that it works with lots of different things. You can come up with a really crafty, low budget way to do it as well. So the only thing is you must have a top so that you can put the weight on it, because the cheese mold comes with the top, so you can put it in cheese press or weights on top. So you just make sure that you have something that fits inside of the mold that you're going to use. All right, so the timer has just went off, And you can see how these are kind of firming up and cooking a little slightly. They just look more like a cottage cheese, firmer curd now, and you've got lots of the whey on top. If you want to make this recipe half and only have to use one of your molds, you can do that as well by trying it. If you want to just try it with 1 gallon of milk first, that's a great idea too. So I'm going to take this thing over to the sink and I'm going to drain off as much whey as I can without getting any of the curd on, like getting any of the curd going down the drain or anything. If you let your pot sit for about 5 minutes after you stop stirring, it'll help separate the whey and the curd even further, and you can drain off the whey a lot easier. So let it sit for about 5 more minutes, and then we will strain the majority of the whey off before we get it into our mold. So just while we're waiting, I'm going to slightly dip my cheesecloth into the whey. This is not the cheesecloth that's in the sink. This is another one for the other mold. And I'm going to just dampen that slightly so that like I said, the cheese doesn't stick to the cheesecloth. And I'm only doing the part that's probably going into the mold. Just like this, because the other one is going to be being damp from being in the colander in the sink already. So I don't need to worry about that one. So what you want to do is you want to keep the majority of the curd in the pot, because now we're going to take out that other curd, put it back in the pot, and get ready to salt it. Okay, so now we're just going to gather this up in our cheesecloth. We don't want to squeeze it at this point. We just want to gently let the whey drip off. And then we're going to carry it back over to our pot. So I'm going to just put a plate underneath of this and carry it over. So I'm just adding the rest of that curd that we had in the strainer to my pot. And then I'm going to use this cheesecloth to line my little round cheese mold. So I have this one ready and this one, and they're both, oh, there's a little curd. See, there's even more whey already forming. So that is why we have to press it for so long and so heavy. So there we go. We've got that in there. So now we are sprinkling 3 tablespoons of salt. Remember, it cannot be iodized. And I'm just using pink Himalayan. Doesn't matter, any kind of sea salt will work. And with clean hands, I'm just going to kind of smush this around without damaging the curd as best that I can. And try and just incorporate that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to take on the flavor, and it's not going to be that salty as you think, because there's so much whey. Look at how much is coming out. But it's actually part of the preservation. You can't not have the salt. So perfect. So now that we've got it like this, what we can do is ladle out or scoop out with your hand a lot of the curd. And I'm gonna put this, divide this between my 2 molds. It almost reminds me of scrambled egg. Look at all those beautiful curds. And the more curds they are, the more cheese you will get. So if you stir too much, when we were doing our stirring, that's what you will mix so much curd with the whey that you will actually give yourself less cheese. So I'm just going to get the rest of this out and evenly distribute the curds here. I can fit all this up to the top and then some in this one because I know how much it will press down. So you can kind of heap it a little bit. If you have a smaller mold, but I'm just going to continue getting all of that out and be right back. So I've got the follower on top and we've covered our cheese with the cheesecloth. This is a little excessive. I had big pieces that I cut, but I'm sometimes want to use a bigger mold. So I like the bigger pieces because I reuse them. So I'm just got this on here and we want to get on about 25 pounds of pressure on for about 15-20 minutes for our first drain. And you're going to watch that the whey is going to collect in your cookie sheet. So you need to make sure that these have somewhere for them to drain off. So this is the time you want to get your weight on your mold. Okay, so as you can see, I've got this mold, and this is like a homemade mold that I've put the pressure on by using these turny things. And you can see that it's already, the liquid is coming out. And so that one's got the proper weight on it. And then this one I've kind of improvised. I have put about 25 pounds of weight on it with these small weights. Now I'm going to need more, so then I'll have to use a different weight after. But you can see that the whey is dripping out. And so just place these on another cookie sheet, which I just washed, when you want to take this tray and drain it off. And it's good to turn your bins slightly, like I like to turn this one on an angle every now and then and really let the whey drip off. And we're going to set the timer for 25 minutes. Hey guys, are you excited for the cheese? Are you excited? Okay, so it is time to take our cheese out and flip it. So let's flip this cheese, keeping it in the cheesecloth, but we're going to flip it and turn it and then tuck the cheesecloth back in. Ooh, that looks so cool. See, this one has more even weight on it because of this. And so it will compress nicer. But you see this ridge? This is why we're going to flip this over so we can have better weight. And then we're going to straighten all of this out too. Just look at that beautiful cheese already. Looking so nice and firm. So we're just going to flip that over, and I'm going to kind of clean this edge up and put it back in the press. Okay, I've got my gimmicky set up, but you know what, you guys, it works, and you got to do what you got to do. So make it work however you want. So I've got this flipped over. It's looking beautiful. Both of them are going to be great. And I'm going to leave that for another about 30 minutes. And then we're going to flip it again. Hey, buddy. So while my cheese is pressing, I just came out and the sun is shining, and it's so nice because as you saw earlier, it was just pouring rain. So now I don't have to water any of my garden beds, and they're coming along so nice. These are all cabbage, more cabbage, because it's my favorite. Lettuce and spinach. And let's look in here and see how this is doing. Ooh, this needs watered though. These are all spaghetti squash, cucumbers. They were just starting. Green peppers. And these are all different varieties of tomatoes. So they're really coming along. Oh wow, what a beautiful day. How funny, it was just pouring rain not too long ago. That was like about an hour and a half ago. Crazy. Okay, so these have waited another half an hour, and I'm going to flip them one more time, and I'm going to add way more weight. So I'm not sure where I'm going to get it from yet, but that's the next step. So time to flip these. I'm excited to take a look at this because always after about the second press, it starts really looking like a block of cheese. Where did it go? Oh, wow. That's cool. It's looking so nice. So there's our cheese, and it's starting to really firm up. So I'm just going to straighten. I don't want to put it anywhere that's not perfectly clean, but I haven't just sterilized. So I just want to straighten up this cheesecloth a bit. I'll try and get as many wrinkles out as I can. And pop that back in. It's kind of spongy right now, but I'm going to wrap that back up and check that one and then add more weight. Here's our little slab of cheese. Looking really good, a little bit wrinkly, but we're going to turn that over again and do another press. Okay, these are all set up again, and now we need 50 pounds of pressure approximately. So I'm not sure. This one I can just keep turning and turning and pressing and adding more weight, and that one I'm not too sure. I'm just going to have to take the process a little slower, or wait till Heavy comes home and can lift way more heavy weights for me. But these are going to sit again now for about an hour and with a heavier weight, and then after that you're going to take it off, flip it, and leave it overnight. So I will get back to you tomorrow and we'll check our cheese. So I have completed the process overnight, and I've taken them out of the molds, and look how great these look. Now you can trim all of this off and make it perfect, which I will later when it starts drying. So now we're just going to let this dry for a few days. I like to let mine dry at least 3 or 4 days. Maybe this one I won't because it's so thin. But I'm going to let this dry for a few days, and when there's no longer any moisture in there, I will use my food saver and put it into the cryovac wrap. So it's that easy, you guys, and look at how cute that looks. And it's going to get darken up as it gets drier, more orange cheddary. And I'm just so happy. It looks so great. So today is day 2, and you can see that it's getting a little bit more orange. It's starting to dry out. The moisture's all coming to the top of the cheese, and so that's what it should be doing. And when it all looks like that with no kind of white spots, then I can Gryvac it. So that would be probably another couple days.
Well, thank you guys for coming along with me making this cheese. It was really fun. Don't forget that you need to let it sit for a few days at least on the counter, between 2 and 4 or 5 days, depending on how much moisture is left in your cheese. And it will build a little bit of a rind, and that's perfect. And then you can vacuum seal it or wax it. And then I like to save it for like 3 to 6 months. 3 months being mild cheese, 4 or 5 being medium, and 6 being old, like sharp. So I hope you enjoyed that. You saw how easy it is, and you know you could do it no problem yourself. So have fun and keep me posted. Any questions you have, I'm happy to answer them. Thanks for visiting, and I'll see you next time, friends. Bye.